Yeah.
Oh, where do you want me?
Between us two young men.
That's right. Millennials. Kia ora. I'll just move this. I don't have a presentation. This is just a verbal update. Maori, this is really in response to your queries, and apologies that there is no paper, but we just don't have that much information to present in a paper, so I thought a verbal would be spot on. So for the rest of you, Mare asked a few questions around, for the tank plan change, how many submissions we'd received, how many submissions we'd received from tangata whenua groups, and also what is the timeline projecting forward. So we've received quite a number of submissions. We've had 240 submissions. So far my team have managed to summarise 55 of those because some of them are quite lengthy. I think our record on one of them is 150 pages. We've had, and I'll give you a bit of a general overview, we've had 3 industry pro forma or template submissions. So within that we've had 9 from beef and lamb, 22 from wine growers, 31 from Hawke and Z, so within their collective groups. We've had Heretaunga Tamatea Settlement Trust, Niki, Mangaharuru Tangitu Trust, Te Tai Whenua o Heretaunga, and Te Tai Whenua o Te Whanganui o Rotu. We've had 38 submissions from Mangaroa Marae, and we've had a number of other marae and iwi hapu groups, Matahiwi Marae, Mihi Roa Marae, Korongo Ngata Marae, and Ngāti Henemanu. We've also had some other Māori organisations, the Māori Climate Commission, Te Tumu Paeroa, and Takitumu Māori Council. And there have been other submissions from what we call the usual suspects, so the councils, Napier and Hastings, industry groups such as fed farmers, beef and lamb, as I've explained, Hawke and Z, wine growers, vegetable growers, apples and pears. Also environmental groups, Hawke's Bay Fish and Game, Ahuriri Estuary Protection Society, DOC, Environmental Defence Society, and some others that may be of interest, so MFE, Fire and Emergency New Zealand, and the New Zealand Defence Force. And there will be others sort of outside of those groupings. So yes, we're partway through summarising those submissions and getting them into our database, and it's going to take quite a wee while. I suspect we probably have another 6 weeks worth of work to do that. And then we'll be able to go out to further submissions. So,
just a quick question. I know because I've seen the timeline for inside the RPC report, so you're pretty much sticking to that timeline, or do you think, based on what you've just described, it's going to be probably overlapped in some way?
I think we had indicated on the website that we would hope to be going out to further submissions in September, but I think it's probably more likely October, based on the length of time it's taking us to get all of this information into our database. And at this stage we're indicating that hearings will be in May of next year.
And Kerry, we might as well leave you there, so then we'll move into number 17, the statutory advocacy update.
Yes. So this is, for those of you who aren't familiar with this reporting, the statutory advocacy update is something that we present to the Regional Planning Committee every 6 weeks. And really that's just updating the committee on our, where we've made submissions on the council's behalf in terms of resource consent applications, district plan reviews, or whatever's in front of us at the time. It's not anything where we are the decision makers. And you probably remember, for those of you who were here in 2017, we provided quite an extensive update on the marine and coastal area Takutai Moana applications. Because back in April of 2017 they closed. So the Regional Council aren't the receivers of those applications, it's either the High Courts or the Crown. And we, as a regional council, are interested parties in those applications. So we've been trying to maintain within our team a sort of a database, if you like, of what's going on, so we know what's happening. We also have Simpson Grierson acting on our behalf, and whenever there's any minutes through the court, they advise us of those minutes and summarise those and just provide us with a general update. Now, the reason why the Takutai Moana applications have come back onto the updates there is because we're now at the point where some of these are going to court. So, for instance, there was, hang on, I'm just scrolling through, sorry, bear with me. The top one of table 4 is the Malcolm J. Kingi on behalf of Ngai Tahu or Mohaka Waikare. And so this is the first one where we've provided evidence in respect to our what's called a Section 274 notice of appearance to the High Court. So we've provided evidence to that, and that's actually also been combined with Ngāti Pāro, Ngāti Pahawera and Maungaharuru Tangitu Trust's applications. So the court will be hearing them concurrently. So the essentially the reason why we are have submitted that notice of appearance is because the Regional Council have various things within those coastal marine areas where we have functions, responsibilities under the Resource Management Act, and so, for instance, where there might be a groin, or up the road there we deposit gravel to maintain that beach area, or we have monitoring or resource consents for discharges to water, things like that. So that's why we have, why we're interested. That's interesting.
Sorry.
So that's why we're interested parties in those applications. It's not that we support or oppose. We don't have an opinion per se of those applications. We just need to maintain our regional council functions within those areas.
Yep.
Any questions? Oh. Okay, so thank you, Kerry. So I'd like to, if someone could move receive the August 2020 statutory advocacy update and also her tank submission update as well.
Oh, seconded.
Anyway, seconded by Māre. All in favour?
Bye-bye, kia ora.
Aere tonu.
Bye.
Thank you, Kerry.
Lovely,
And
thank
next
you.
one is Perry, significant organisational activities.
So you'll see that as part of your reading pack. And probably James gave a really good summary pulled out of this, but there isn't here's James here. Just talking about the significant activities report over September. So James gave a good summary of this earlier on, and you'll see a lot of that within the broader narrative of this report. I think a key one in here for September is that this, for the first time, is probably coming to the Maori Committee before the Regional Council. Would that be correct, James?
I actually
30 September is Regional Council.
it is normally. I think some of this content might have gone
August.
to the end of August. So
Yeah, this is from the August pack.
Yep. But if we could take this, Madam Chair, as read and see if there's any questions.
Take it as read. Any questions? It's a big document. I'll say you're well informed about your catchments as well on the mahi going on. Everybody's getting tired. Kei te pai. Someone like to move the report then?
Aye.
Api, the seconder. Charles. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. And last one. Yay. Okay. How many minutes we got? Got 3 minutes each. Discussion of minor matters not on the agenda. Okay, so topic 1, Three Waters Review, Peter Eden, you only got 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, and I suppose it was just an acknowledgement there, disappointment of obviously that last week you had the Three Waters hui, and then at the last hour, obviously, I suppose it's just not good management practice when we set up our schedules and that to attend those hui, and then at the last moment we get notified and we talk about te mana o te wai and engagement with Maori. It doesn't demonstrate a good partnership, and I know that I read the pānui that come out, but. Yeah, is that sort of acceptable for myself, or generally not? Oh yeah, it's about working in true partnership with Maori, and everyone took time out to attend those, and we changed our schedule. So, yeah, I was disappointed in that response.
Yeah, we made a mistake, and I know Tony, as our lead person in terms of the HB3 Waters Review, she was very remorseful and apologetic about that. So it wasn't in any way a reflection on the type of partnership that we want. It was a mistake on our part, not realising that COVID had some restrictions over the hui, so our apology.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because we talk partnership with Maori, and sometimes you feel strongly, because, and I could have, if I was going to send a memo to the minister and say, hey, how does this demonstrate relationship when Maori are left out of the process? You know what I mean? Because I thought, well, is that an excuse or a viable excuse? And nothing against Tony, I know she's someone in the mechanism, but I suppose we just need to work on that and make sure that doesn't happen again.
We made a mistake, we apologise for that.
I'm also just note that unfortunately some people were shooting the messenger, and you got to be kind to our people. And there was a mistake. I probably wouldn't have been happy if I'd come through from Wairoa with Katarina and Papa Bill and been told they couldn't come in. But our staff were there, and I think they just didn't get treated well. And I've just heard it wasn't their mistake. So yeah, there's the other side of the story too. And I'd be kind to our people, that's it. And so, haere tonu, topic 2, workshops, wānanga, Peter, Roger's gone, so it's you, Peter.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, workshops and wānanga, and I suppose that'll be in relation, we talked about Te Mana o Te Wai, and then setting up a structure, and we talked about the content of the agenda, I don't know if I bring that in there, and then with the Māori Standing Committee be a part, maybe when those draft agendas are drawn up, because we're saying that they are long, and then just working through to see if it's fit for purpose for our hui, and then we're getting value, and then potentially, like Te Mana, we've mentioned it a lot, then obviously we need to look at some of those workshops being incorporated with the committee, and there, I suppose there were some good comments about that wānanga, and then people were educated or provided information that they can, when they come to the meeting, we know about Te Mana o Te Wai, we know the framework, how it's going to work, and then when we're having conversations, sometimes we won't be repeating ourselves, so it's just being more efficient and effective. So how we frame that up in a wānanga type scenario for members, obviously we're wanting to put that on the tepu, and we work with you, or
Our subcommittee, Mike, we could carry that one on with the wānanga and work for Pieri, but you can hear Te Mana o Te Wai repeatedly.
We're going to need multiple wānanga on that. Yeah.
Okay, then.
And just other, as because government role, and Rick mentioned about new policy and legislation coming out, there might be some more new policy legislation rolled out next year that adds value to this committee when we're in a hui to add value to why we're here. Because we want to add value, but sometimes if you don't know the information and that you're not informed when you're making a decision.
We're certainly the recipients for that. We're a good starting point. We'd work closely with Kerry and her team in respect of that.
Just adding to that, so building on what we saw on Friday with the 5 councils coming together, and we talked about utilising Māori and not overburdening us with having to meet several times to talk about the same kaupapa. So given the new framework around Wai, so rather than us having a wānanga with Hawke's Bay Regional Council, perhaps Regional Council in fostering a wider conversation, that regional conversation, because we are going to have the same conversation over and over and over. So let's have it once and get that overall feed-in from everybody. Might be far more useful. Then we can break down into our smaller collectives after.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for the agenda, the frequency, do you think that the wānanga will decrease the size of the agenda, or is there a need for increase in frequency? We did talk about this on the phone.
So at the moment, this committee meets every second month. And although the business is slightly different for the Regional Planning Committee, they did move to an 8-week interval. just so that they had time to digest and be informed about all of the papers that were coming through of RPC at that time. So I guess the question here is, you're meeting every second month,
Is that enough?
and does that need to be pushed out, or?
Is that enough? Do we need to decrease it? And also about having the papers in front of us
6 weeks.
before they go to the regional council, so that we can give the recommendations to them.
Yeah, so
That
every
was the
6
purpose,
weeks.
wasn't it? Every 6 weeks?
Yeah, every 6 weeks is the way it works at the moment.
Oh,
For the RPC.
RPC, so is there a possibility that we increase to every 6 weeks, or do you think?
I would say would be in danger of actual burnout if we started to, because yes, we're meeting every 2 months, but we're actually talking about having one in between those ones.
It's probably more useful.
Yeah, and the way is one is going to be more useful to us than actually meeting this more structured format more often.
A suggestion, we perhaps review that at the end of the year and see how it's gone with a bit of wānanga in between.
Yeah.
At the point? Okay.
So are we saying we're going to have a wānanga with Te Mana o Te Wai before the end of this year, before December?
Well,
That's a possibility.
Well, the most immediate suggestion, which we made on Monday, is that we have a wānanga on the State of Environment report with both this committee as well as the RPC, and have them all together, get our scientists all in, and so everyone's on the same page about all of the issues across land, water, climate and sea, and we all understand what the current state is,
Ground zero.
and then that creates, I think, the foundation for then the conversation about Te Mana o Te Wai. So can we come back to you about whether we can do that meaningfully before the end of the year? But I think it is quite urgent because we're now into implementation of the MPS.
And I suppose the kōrero, because we've been talking about water all day, and we've talked about the frameworks, everyone's sort of had a look at the principles in Te Mana o Te Wai, and like you're saying, you can call hui and hui and look at frameworks, but then if people are looking at some of that framework and they're saying, oh, it's not too bad for Maori, then it's not about recreating the wheel, it's just putting a solution forward that we can adopt as a committee, and we might not like all of it, but a large part of it we might like, and then we can adopt it potentially into the framework, and it'll cut down on time, regional council time, our time. And if we say, yep, this is a framework that we can work within, and it's got some positives, and then because when we'll get the overview of the environment, that's KTBI, we know where it's at, but then we've got to look at our engagement strategy about how we work to address whatever concerns you raise. So yeah, they sort of go hand in hand at different parts.
Looking forward to the first one.
Through our chair earlier on today, with the terms of reference, because the frequency of the meeting is all part of that, in terms of the terms of reference in the charter, and we assigned that to the subcommittees, a combined collaborative subcommittee to look at that. Perhaps it can be included as part of that discussion, the frequency of meeting.
Okay, we better make a note of that. So the next three are you, Mare, gravel extraction.
Oh, we'll cross off Waihi Tapu, but I'll try and be quick anyway.
It's too controversial.
We had enough of that. And I'm glad you're in here too as well, James. I guess the thing is that we had facilitated discussion. This is to do with the global consent for the extraction of gravel in river channels, which is has a section of the regional assets section of council making the application to itself. And it's drawn a number of submissions in this regard that haven't objected. It was, the discussion to talk about conditions and certainty. So I think that was done really well, particularly with Janine, the independent facilitator that was here, and Martina and Simon represented, of course, the assets company. And Malcolm and Co were obviously kind of just making sure that from their perspective those particular matters were going to fit within council. So just having to witness something quite new, because it really is new. And you'd think, oh, okay, where's going to, where's that separation of itself and amongst all of this? So clearly that was demonstrated. One issue I just want to raise was the fact that we've been plugging for a 10-year time with a 5-year renewal, and the applicant was seeking a 25-year time frame. So whilst I guess it is focused on the Ngariroro the tūtaikuri and the tuki. And I guess what we made in our submission, which could be useful, and this is just a heads up, and I think just hearing from you, James, whether this whole process is actually going to move through the whole of Hawke's Bay, or it's just focused in this area for the moment, was to, amongst other things, ensure that our Te Ao Māori worldview, while we're talking with gravel, goes much wider in that perspective. So quite a bit of that discussion was picked up, and no doubt you'll get a report back, James, just to highlight some of the key issues. One in there in particular was, of course, the establishment of a kaitiaki liaison group. And here again, we're talking about workshops in wānanga, because it was predicated on, and because there's an annual report that would be coming in about June of the year, I think, and it would be a trigger point for the kaitiaki liaison group to get its head around it. I did say that, as part of this whole change that we're going through, that there needs to be a change even in political will to enable such of those sorts of dynamics to at least demonstrate, express a co-design into process, a co-management, and of course, if the ability does enable, and of course there are tools in RMA, while it's here, to now enable that active participation and true partnership, we would tease out what would the kaitiaki liaison terms of reference shape up itself to look like. Certainly, as we discussed, there could be two groups just on the tuki, just to reflect the respective bottom end of Heretaunga and, of course, Tamatea at the top end. And what we're trying to work toward with the applicant is to put together an MOU that will satisfy that relationship in terms of meeting our own agreed expectations, and then we'd shape up the terms of reference. So there is a kind of start point which has an ability to influence kind of the end point being a terms of reference framework. And so I just wanted to make sure that this is just rolled off the press, give everyone a little bit of a heads up.
So in relation to that, you're talking about, and we're having our discussions in regards to waka and change, and we've got kaitiaki, or we've appointed kaitiaki to work within that relationship. So and I know it's different hours, but is there opportunity for participants to sit, not to make decisions, but to sit alongside yourselves, as kaitiaki, to share what you're saying, because then when it comes to the mōhaka plan change, then they've got indication what's happening on the tuki, and then they can come back to us because they're our whānau that's just sitting along, not to vote, but just sitting alongside you. It makes sense, because if you're doing the mōhaka and those changes up in the white, or if we can have some people just sitting along just to take a working break, do you think that would work?
Well, I guess we probably an infant in that stage to kind of crawl before we start to walk. So all of this deals with a number of different factors, but at some stage, I think when we're confident about this is what we've agreed on, I think it would be okay. But initially, having to put all of these parts together to see how it's going to work, composition, whereabouts, begin, end, but more importantly, what our key, the values and amongst all of this, there's enough documentation around to actually extrapolate this out without having to recreate the wheel. So it's just come off the press and we're still getting our heads around it. Fortuitously for us too, which was probably a credit to Rex, he came out last year and spoke to us at the Tai Whenua. And it was around setting up, I think he went a little bit of a lone rogue on this too as well, James, where he was promoting co-governance management over, in this case, the karamu. And what we set about to do and workshop ourselves over a period of 3 or 4 months was to set out a process and a charter of engagement. Now, the useful thing about that is that we were wanting to use that on, if the opportunity came in that discussion, which is still sitting up in the air, that bit of work has become quite useful, actually. And I've just sent it over to Niall with the intention that I wanted to send it over to Simon to say, look, what do you think about this in terms of where these moving parts are moving towards, in this regard, setting up these terms of reference? So it's really about having that sort of trust with each other to say, look, we want to arrive in the same place with each other, providing, of course, that we've got an ability to influence as well as advocate, as well as, provide what we think could be a really good relationship.
Michelle, could I just comment on that? So to your question about the rest of the region, Mate, one of the reasons that we just focused on the Hiritonga zone, but there's also tamatia brought in by the upper Tuki, is that we've got a bespoke arrangement with Ngāti Pahuera in relation to mohaka, and that needs some further work because it hasn't been entirely satisfactory for everybody. And Piri and I were just talking about that last night. So there's work to do there, and then I think the rest of the region needs to follow with the plan change program and what have you, which takes me back to, I guess, my comment in relation to what you're proposing. And it's really a question about efficiency for mana whenua as it is for us. Obviously, gravel management is part of a bigger catchment management program of activity. And does it make sense to set up kaitiaki arrangements and governance arrangements that cover all facets of the awa and do it at that level? Because the only thing I worry about is if we're setting up something bespoke for gravel management, then we end up having something for whitebait, we end up having something for obviously managing the farming and the nutrients and the catchment, and we end up having just lots of committees and lots of meetings for you to go to as much as us needing to service. So I'm just sitting back and thinking, what's the best set of arrangements for managing these water bodies in the long term where we can deal with all the issues in a sort of a one-stop shop? So look, I just leave that for you to contemplate.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an answer back because I think you may have been out of the room when I was actually talking through, I think, another part of this. And so we look at this as a holistic view. It might be gravel, but it involves water.
Yes.
So I don't see a proliferation of groups.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. But it may be a one-stop shop group covering all of those facets.
Yeah, I think that would be most efficient. So let's take that offline. Yep.
And number 6, Waitapu's been covered, so number 7, do you want to speak on that?
I think, and this is probably what activated that part of this conversation, is that you're gearing up to get ready to have the discussion so that programs such as gravel and everything else that you probably described up there gets to be valued and costed up, and of course that goes into the long-term plan. What I'm just advocating for is that we probably need to do that ourselves. And as a direct consequence of us having to meet prior in the last LTP, Pierre emerged out of this, and it was the result of Mike, Roger, myself, and others on the Maori Standing Committee coming together just to kind of say, okay, what's on the table, what's realistically able to be put forward, both in terms of the LTP annual plan, so we just get ahead of the charge, because I think we might have just got up to the point last time, which was only like weeks out.
Yeah,
That's all.
we'll be much earlier engagement this year. Yeah, understand.
Okay, and now on to you, Piri. So you've already introduced Nathan, which was
Done that?
topic 8, and topic 9 is Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. So just up on the screen there, you'll probably see this starting to come up not only in your emails, but around. This is for Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. Just picking up your point earlier on about it being efficient across all 5 councils. Yes. So down the bottom, this is sponsored by all 5 councils. And Wairau was the lead here. Yeah. Well, Dwayne let us know that up in Wairau since 2013, you've had these flags that you put up during Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. Dwayne shared that with our friends across each of the councils, and so we've replicated your Wairau model. And just to add to that, because Central Hawke's Bay, and this is a pitch for you, Paora, for Tamatea, Monique and your board down there have decided to find a cultural resource. They're going through the recruitment process now, and so acknowledging that resource that's going in there, what James and what Hawke's Bay Regional Council have done on your behalf is we've purchased 30 of these flags. Because we don't have any flag poles or lamp posts, we've dedicated 20 of those down to Central Hawke's Bay so they can fly down there, and we've given 5 each to HDC and also to NCC. Cool. And this is what you're going to see. So when you leave here, if you're going south, don't go south. Go out towards Marine Parade and travel down the road, and keep watching the road, but just in your peripheral vision, pick up the...
When are they up?
They're up now.
They're up now.
I think of
It's famous.
we have that one up there?
Yeah, Marine Parade. Yeah, kia tika, do it right. So we've run this past a few of the people, make sure we got these right in terms of our dialect. So, Uncle, kia kaha mai rā tātou ki te reo. So they'll be flying up there. The second and last was talking about the Cultural Capability app. The waiata that we did at the start, nā tuiri nā tēnā, that one there is going to be part of a set of waiata and karakia and kupu and explanations that are going to be on a digital app. That's going to be launched by our chairs and our CEs on the 21st of September, so a week after Te Reo. And we'll send you some instructions, or we might do it at the next one, is tell you to bring your phones in, and we'll take you through a course to download. And that's why I indicated this morning that when Auntie Nina comes, you should all matatauki ngā waiata. So that's the Cultural Capability app. It's going to be called Te Kupinga, and our 5 councils, it's another one that we've done for efficiency's sake, that'll go out at the same time across all 5 council staff, their committees. It'll be a free public download to Apple and Android. Thank you.
Hi. Awesome. And after a very lengthy hui, we finally come to the end. And I think I've been had this the Te Mano Te Wai report, and I saw this and I thought it's a good way to sort of close my kōrero before Matua Hami closes with a karakia. Te Mano Te Wai, the health of our wai, the health of our nation. Kei te tangi a Ranginui, kei te tangi a Papatūānuku, kei te rere ngā roimata, rere ki uta, rere ki tai. Kei hea ngā kaitiaki mo te mano o te wai, te Maori o te wai, whakarongo mai, whakaoratia. Hei oranga wairua, hei oranga tangata, hei oranga mo Aotearoa katoa. Matua whika closes.
I was just going to appeal to Hinewai, and so Uncle can close out with our karakia to lead us in our waita, and then Uncle will do our karakia.
That's me.
E tū tātai.
Hi, mate.
Te ara I whanatu ai rā, pūra kau e tū mai nei, e piki ki runga rā, kia marama hau, kei raro ko te matau, e whakatikanga ke ki runga rā, ka titi whatere hutai, te ara I whanatu ai rā, ko te kura ki a hau, hei tohu no ake, ki te kura I te te whakawhiti o te rā, te whakaai o whenua, hoki muri mai au ki te iwi, te ara I whanatu ai rā.
Ai no mi no hoki tata. Te mange mi ngāne hera poni te tukaturi tapu. Kakurungi mai nei mātou ki rato ki te arohanoa. Reira manaki te mai no ki tātou te o tātou rōpu. Rungu ki wā tātou hokinga ki te wākainga, amarai maha. Ki tai pai kato ki tātou hei tūtaki ngā whānau, kei reira ki rātou e no hoan. Hoi anō manaki te mai no ki rātou kei tēnā ho Maori riana. Ai rato ki ngā hohi pera mi ngā marakainga. Ke piki te ora, piki te kaha me te māramatanga ki tēnā, me tēnā rātou. E te māngai mi ngāne hera pone te tukaturi tapu. Whakurungia mai nei mātou ki roto ki te arohanoa. Pai here tia tunu mātou. Ki roto ki te rangi Māori o ngā wā katoa. Ko koe anō ki te māngai hei tau tuko mai. Ai nei, āke nei, ai. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.